We have made it to the trade deadline here in year number 2 of the Chicago White Sox franchise here on MLB The Show 25. Another opportunity for us to look to add to the long-term future of the roster, of course, with Luis Robert and Kyle Schwarber as two potential trade candidates for us, being in a very competitive bloodbath of the division with 4 current playoff teams and then us well behind the rest of the pack. Although we've played pretty well since the All-Star break, we were like 1-9 going into the break, but since the All-Star festivities, we are 8-5. We've been playing some really good baseball. Granted, not the best competition like the Angels and the Blue Jays, but we've played some better teams as of recent, and we've been able to hold up for the most part. Last episode was the MLB draft, where we selected Martin Burt 7th overall. The board really did not play in our favor at all, but I still like our draft, and I'm excited to see everyone's ratings a little bit later today. But first, we get to the trade deadline, and obviously part of managing the White Sox is managing our finances, along with potential extensions, because we want to get some of these young guys here for the long haul, such as Drew Thorpe or Hagen Smith, with how well they've played. Noah Schultz has obviously had a great month of July. He's another extension candidate. And then Brian Ramos, too. Maybe even Kyle Teal as well, even though his offense hasn't quite been up to snuff. But, of course, this team also has some veterans. As I mentioned, Lou Bob and Kyle Schwarber are the 2 veterans on this team who have actual value and could net us a potentially good trade offer. And then there are lesser veterans who could fetch us smaller deals, and maybe it would still be worth it. Maybe we choose to still hold on to them. So we'll start with the pros and cons of keeping versus trading Luis Robert and Kyle Schwarber, because they are certainly 2 intriguing assets, and they could both fetch us some potentially nice deals. We'll start with Schwarber, who we signed in free agency this year to a 3-year deal with imaginary opt-outs after the first 2 years. So theoretically, he could get out of this deal if he wants to, enter the open market, and we could get nothing but, I guess, some sort of compensatory pick. Schwarber's obviously had a strong year, tied for 3rd in home runs, along with winning the home run derby. He's in the mix for a Silver Slugger spot in the American League. 31 home runs, hitting for pretty good average, pretty high OPS. The walk rate is his 2nd lowest of his career, but it's still quite good. In terms of trade packages, I think we could get something pretty solid, but nothing outstanding. The trade offers in the finder were a little bit disappointing, admittedly, but he's also, 32, 33 years old, and he has some notable limitations in his game, so I understand it. He's a very negative defender. He strikes out a lot. Contact has been up and down throughout his career, but we're still going to get something for him if we choose to trade him away. And then in the case of Luis Robert, it's a little bit different because he has ascended to superstardom. He is really, really good. You look at someone who's an elite offensive player, 28 home runs, hitting 300, while giving us Gold Glove level defense in center field. He has been on a tear as of recent, OPS over 1,300 within his last 10 games, and a WAR at 5.4. He is a complete 5-tool player, 2nd in the American League in WAR, only behind Jose Ramirez. And it makes sense. He's 8th in terms of qualified players in batting average, 6th in home runs, 3rd in RBIs. He's certainly in the mix for a Silver Slugger spot. I think he should be in the mix for the MVP. And he's currently the leader in the doghouse for a Gold Glove in center field, which is one of the most prominent positions on the diamond, other than catcher and shortstop, probably the hardest position to play. His contract is in a weird spot because he's not expiring. He has a 1.5 years left on his deal, so theoretically a contending team trading for him would get 2 playoff runs with him. And because of that, I think his value would be really, really, really high on the open market. And we talked about some potential trades with him in the last episode. There are some good ones. We could get multiple top 100 prospects as the starting point of the trade. But there's also an easy argument against trading him away. You do not come around players such as Luis Robert very often. And I get that Jerry Reinsdorf historically does not like to send money. An extension for Luis Robert would probably be doubled or tripled the largest contract in the history of the Chicago White Sox. So it's no guarantee we bring him back, but could be something we try to play around with. So with Lou Bob and Schwarber, we'll start with Schwarber. And I do plan on trading him away. I think I was able to find a deal that I ultimately liked. I wanted to send him to a place where he would want to go. And my first thought would be a contending team in either of the Central divisions. Luckily, everyone in the AL Central is on board because well, they're all really good. And then in terms of the NL Central, I think the Brewers, Reds, and Cubs would all make sense. I wanted to send him to a Central team because he's from Ohio. This is his neck of the woods, and part of the allure of coming to the Chicago White Sox is that he's going to be playing pretty close to home. So in terms of those teams, I was able to do some digging around. I was able to find some trades I liked. I don't want to send him to the AL Central ideally, because if he opts in, we're going to have to deal with him for a couple years. So in terms of the Reds, I looked at Spencer Steer, I looked at Johan Rojas. They weren't really looking to do that. Noelvi Marte probably would be the headliner of a package with the Reds. The problem with him is that he cannot play defense at all. And if you're going to be an everyday starter at third base or shortstop in the long term, you got to play defense. I looked at the Brewers. Rhys Hoskins has been god-awful this year, negative 1.8 WAR. And in terms of the potential match, Brock Wilken would make a lot of sense. I do like him quite a bit. He's had a good year in AAA. But I decided to do some further digging, and I found a team that might make even more sense. So the Phillies, of course, last year let him go to sign Kyle Tucker. And admittedly, Kyle Tucker is obviously a much better player. But this year he's been injured and he's been a little up and down. And you can make the argument that the Phillies might be having reservations about this signing. Kyle Tucker's WAR is 4 times lower than that of Kyle Schwarber. So maybe Schwarber wants to get revenge and join a division rival, a team who the Phillies really do not like, such as the New York Mets, who like guys with big-time power bats. I mean, Mark Vientos just won the MVP last year, for Christ's sake. Pete Alonso has made his living off of hitting home runs. But both Alonso and Vientos do not have something which Schwarber does, and that's the ability to truly command the strike zone. Kyle Schwarber's walk rate is probably close to doubled that of Vientos and Alonso. Not to mention Pete is a free agent at the end of the year, and I could understand the Mets being hesitant to potentially paying him a long-term deal, given that Lindor and Juan Soto are obviously making big money. Ryan Clifford can play first base as well, so they would have an easy replacement. So I think the Mets will be a good fit for Schwarber. The one problem is the budget. They wouldn't have the money to make this work. However, this is a 2-part deal. Pete Alonso will not be staying with the Mets. He's not coming here, although it would be a little funny. But he is going to a different Chicago team, the Cubs. Jefferson Rojas and Jackson Wiggins will be the price for New York, the number 5 and 7 prospects in the Cubs system. Chicago is towards the middle of the standings, but their big weakness is power. They're bottom 5 in home runs. They need someone who can take it over the fence, and Pete Alonso's a great fit. The Mets are getting a pretty good return. 2 solid prospects, including Rojas in the middle infield, and that's especially worth noting because they are crowded in the infield. Rojas, Jesus Baez, Jet Williams, Ronnie Mauricio, Luis Angel Acuna. They have a lot of prospects at second base and shortstop, and maybe one of them would be expendable. Last year, I was extremely close to getting Ronnie Mauricio. I had a deal lined up, Mauricio for Bryce Wilson, and admittedly, we probably should have taken it, even though I do like Jagger Haynes quite a bit, who we got instead from San Diego for Wilson. But Ronnie Mauricio's had a really solid season. He has a 2 WAR, really good contact, power's a little bit low, but everything else has been quite solid. He has really outplayed Luis Angel Acuna, which wasn't necessarily expected coming into the year. So I don't think Ronnie Mauricio would probably be available, but I think any of those shortstops could be in play. And maybe Luis Angel Acuna, who would be a great addition for us. Really highly regarded prospect who's played pretty much a full season's worth of games now with the Mets, and he hasn't really been able to put it together. He's not an awful player by any stretch, but I wouldn't say he's been a particularly great player either. And I think with the emergence of Ronnie Mauricio, it would make sense that they're maybe starting to run out of patience a little bit for Luis Angel Acuna. This is a team who's obviously in a contention window with guys like Lindor and Soto. And I think maybe trading away Acuna for a guy like Kyle Schwarber is something they would be willing to do. Now, we would have to add to the deal a little bit, but I came up with something that I like and makes sense for both sides. So a deal has been made. We're going to be sending Kyle Schwarber along with Garrett Shanley, a 27-year-old lefty arm who's just kind of a throw-in, and Miguel Vargas, a former failed top prospect who's having a nice year in AAA. The contact has been better than expected. High walk rate. He's hitting for extra base power. He's playing good defense. And the Mets think maybe they can rejuvenate him a little bit. Along with Acuna, we'll be getting left-handed reliever Danny Young, who's pitched a lot over the last 3 years for the Mets. I wouldn't say he's pitched particularly well. I don't think the Mets are going to have a hard time trading him away. But I like his skill set. He's got nasty breaking stuff, Good hits per 9, good Ks per 9. I don't like the walks per 9, but everything else looks pretty solid. He has a really high pitching clutch rating, and I think he can be a high leverage reliever for us. So that's going to be the deal. Kyle Schwarber, Miguel Vargas, and Garrett Shanley to the Mets for Luis Angel Acuna and Danny Young, both of whom will be on the big league roster immediately. Acuna instantly becomes the third highest rated position player on the roster, which more so speaks to how bad our team is. But we're getting a big time piece for the future, a former top prospect who has shown some good things in his big league career so far, and he's only 23 years old. There's plenty of time to right the ship with his development. I also found a deal for Joe Ross. He's certainly been disappointing this year, and coming into the season, I was hoping to flip him at the deadline and get more. But at least we'll be getting something for him, and he has played well since the All-Star break, has not allowed a run over the last few weeks. Knock, knock. Who's there? Bailey. Bailey who? Bailey D's nuts in your mouth! Bailey Dees is going to be our acquisition here from the New York Yankees, a 27-year-old, 62 overall pitching prospect, 6'8", 250 pounds. He is an absolute unit. He's not a great prospect by any stretch, but for Joe Ross, a reliever in his 30s with an ERA in the mid-5s, we can't really be expecting all that much to begin with. So those are going to be the two trades we make. Luis Robert is not going to be on the move. We are keeping him in Chicago. It's certainly an interesting decision because his trade value is probably at its highest now. We could get a really good return of 2 or 3 prospects. We could catapult ourselves to probably having the best farm system in the league, and we would really set ourselves up for the future. You can certainly argue that it's really risky to not trade him away now because, say we move forward a year, Luis Robert doesn't plan on re-signing and we look to trade him away, his value would be a lot less. However, the way I see it is I think it would be an even bigger risk to trade him away as opposed to keeping him because we would be risking never getting a player of his caliber again. A Gold Glove center fielder who hits 300 and is on pace for close to 50 home runs is a superstar. This is the type of player you build around, and for a team like the White Sox, who fails to pay guys and fails to pay stars, look, we've got a star right here, and we have to take advantage of having this type of player on our roster. If I were to have traded him away, the deal I would have taken would have been the one I proposed with the Texas Rangers in the last episode. I thought they'd be a great fit for him. We'd be getting Sebastian Walcott and Robbie Girard, who's currently hurt, but I would have edited the injury and then re-edited it to where he'd be out for the next month or so. It would be a really good return. Walcott is the 5th or 6th ranked prospect in baseball. Robbie Girard would be able to start in center field the day he's healthy. But as I said earlier, I think it's even riskier to trade away a guy like Luis Robert because it's so hard to find players of his caliber. So the goal is going to be to extend him at some point. If not, we're going to have to trade him away for a lot less than we would have this offseason. But that's the risk and the gamble that I'm going to be willing to take. So now that we are done making trades, it's time to shuffle the roster a little bit. Coming into the day, I was hoping to bring up Edgar Caro here, but he's been struggling as of recent. His slugging over his last 10 games starts with the number 0. So I think he needs a little more time in AAA. Hopefully we can bring him up for the final month of the regular season. But for now, I'm going to call up Romeo Sanabria, who's been playing really well as of recent. And I want to reward guys for performing at a high level in the minors. In 4 months in AAA this year, he has 14 homers, 44 RBIs, hitting .267 with an OPS near of 800. And his rating is going to go up a few points at the end of the year because of how well he has played through the minor league season. We got him last year at the deadline from the Padres for Mike Tauchman, who played really well in San Diego for 2 months before leaving. I think this deal is going to work out really well for us long term, and I'm excited to have him in the big leagues. Bobby Dalbec's slugging in the last 10 also starts with a 0, so he'll be going down to the minors as Sanabria will be taking his spot. Owen White has been on an absolute tear as of recent, and we cannot keep him in the minors. He's played a little bit in the past with Texas, but he has been shoving in AAA. 1.48 ERA, 1.02 whip this year. He leads all minor league players in WAR, and over his last 10 games, his numbers are straight out of a video game. He averages 7 innings per start. He has allowed no more than 1 run per start. 9 quality starts. The only one that wasn't, he allowed 0 runs in. He ended up going 5 2/3 innings instead of the required 6. He has been unhittable, and we've got to call him up. Jairo Iriarte, meanwhile, is going down to AAA. I just don't really know what to make of him. We've tried him as a starter. We've tried him as a reliever. It hasn't really worked. He's always played really well in AAA, but he's never translated to the big league level. So White is now a starter. We're going to move Davis Martin to the bullpen. I also want to shout out Wilkerman Gonzalez, though. White is not the only pitcher who's been great at AAA this year, and Gonzalez, I think, is going to have a shot to break the starting rotation next year in spring training. This is what the new lineup is going to look like. Acuna is going to play every day, and Sanabria is going to play most days, particularly against righties. He is quite a bit better against right-handed pitching. So I think our team is set post-trade deadline for the final 2 months of the year. But we've still got to go through some of the other trades across the league, and there were some interesting ones. I think it's kind of a weak free agency class. It is dominated by the pitchers with guys like Garrett Crochet and Tarek Skubal, but neither of those teams are going to trade away those guys. So I had to do some digging for scraps, find more under-the-radar free agents on bad teams, or guys who are going to need contracts in the future who teams are not going to want to pay. So the Rays are going to start to sell a little bit with Brandon Lau and Yandy Diaz. We'll start with Lau, who's been here for a while, but he's a free agent at the end of the year, and I'm not sure the Rays really want to pay him. So it'll be a 1-for-1 swap with the Mariners for infielder Felnin Celestin, one of the highest upside infield prospects in baseball. His development's been slower than Seattle had hoped for, though, and with the Mariners currently on the outside looking in of the wild card race, they want to add a spark to their lineup. As for Yandy Diaz, he's headed to Cincinnati. Even at 34 years old, Unk's still got a little bit left in the tank. He's having a really strong year this year. The Reds, of course, acquired Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at the trade deadline last year, and it didn't really work out considering he ditched them for the Dodgers. So it'll be Noelvi Marte headed to the Rays, another 1-for-1 swap. The Rays are usually the team who gets the under-the-radar prospects who they develop. Now they're adding 2 high-profile, high-upside guys whose development has been a little disappointing, but they're hoping to turn it around. Ryan McMahon is headed to the AL Central. He's going to the Royals for shortstop Austin Charles and starting pitcher Chandler Champlain. That is a fire name, by the way. The Royals are looking to add to the corner infield where they already have both Vinny Pasquantino and Jack Caglione. But spoiler alert, one of those guys is on the move shortly. McMahon's been a reliable starter for a while, still has a couple years left on his deal, so he will play third base, and Vinny Pasquantino, meanwhile, is going to San Diego. His numbers have been pretty much identical to that of Jack Caglione this year, and obviously with Caglione being a recent top 10 pick, he's the guy they're going to prioritize. Pasquantino's still got 2.5 years left on his deal, so it's certainly worthwhile for San Diego as they'll be trading away Jacob Melton, who's had a really good year in AAA, and then Ryan Bergert, a 25-year-old starting pitching prospect who's been quite good this year in AA. The Padres really don't have many guys left in that system. Chris Paddock, we thought about signing him in the offseason. He ended up going to the Cardinals, where he's been really good. He is on the move back to the Minnesota Twins, where he was last year. The Twins have not been able to find a 5th starter as a replacement for him, so they'll be sending away outfielder Misael Urbina. They'll be able to survive without him, given that Emmanuel Rodriguez is the runaway favorite for the Rookie of the Year, and Walker Jenkins might be the best prospect in the league right now. Demieres de la Cruz, a catcher, is also headed to St. Louis. All right, let's get a little bigger now. Jorge Soler staying in LA, but he is headed to the Dodgers. It's not a trade deadline without the Dodgers adding to the lineup. They have a lot of really good prospects in their system. They'll be trading away reliever Nino Pacheco and infielder Yanier Fernandez. So none of their high-profile guys on the move. I would expect the Dodgers to make a splash in the trade market this offseason. The Angels are not done, though. They're trading away Mike Trout. It's time. Mike Trout needs to go to a winner. He still has quite a bit left in the tank, and he's been able to stay pretty healthy this year for the first time in a while. His contract is starting to run down a little bit, and since he only has, I think, 4 or 5 more years, it's not as bad given that he's probably not going to age too poorly up until maybe the last couple of years. There's been no team who's been more aggressive to add talent in this series than the Orioles. Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman only have so much more time left on their deals, and adding Trout's contract certainly hurts the Orioles' ability to re-sign those guys long-term, but they don't care. They're trying to win a World Series now. Enrique Ramirez, their second rounder, Max Wagner, and Trace Bright are headed to the Angels. All C potential guys. Keep in mind with Trout's contract, his value is only so high. I thought about a 1-for-1 Mike Trout, Kobe Mayo swap, but I figured the Orioles would rather do that. And then perhaps the best for last, Logan Gilbert to the Red Sox for Jarren Duran. This is an interesting one because you would think that these teams would not trade these guys away. The Mariners went from having one of the best young rotations in baseball to just having one of the best rotations in baseball. All 5 of their starters are getting older. Bryce Miller and Brian Wu are entering arbitration, and they know they cannot afford to keep everyone. Logan Gilbert is the first of their younger crew who's going to need a big payday, and they're not going to pay him. Instead, they're going to add to the lineup with Jarren Duran. The Red Sox, of course, have Garrett Crochet, who's great, but he's a free agent at the end of the year. This gives them another ace in case Crochet leaves. And if he does stay, then they have a filthy 1-2 punch at the top of their rotation. The outfield is very crowded for them, and remember, they already traded away Willie Abreu. Christian Campbell, who still has not made his big league debut because there's so many guys blocking him, he can play a spot in the outfield. So Duran is a guy who felt a little bit more expendable than most would expect. He's been very up and down, inconsistent throughout his career. He's having his best season yet, arguably, but I think the Red Sox view a guy like Gilbert as more of a necessity for them than Jarren Duran. Patrick Sandoval is also in this deal. That way Seattle can have an actual 5th starter. So I think it's a good move for both teams. The Mariners add to the lineup with Jarren Duran, a guy who's going to pair up really nicely with Julio Rodriguez, and the Red Sox, who don't need Duran that much, make the rotation a whole lot better, and their lineup will survive. They have plenty of guys who can play the outfield instead of him. So that is the trade deadline across the league. And what I like about the trade deadline in this game is, as we kind of talked about earlier, this is where we can really talk about contracts with some guys. I'd love to look at what a deal for Luis Robert might look like, but we're going to have to wait until next season. We can talk with Drew Thorpe now, though. I tried an extension with him in the offseason. It never ended up happening. I offered him, I think, 6 years, $72 million, and he ended up saying no. That would be nowhere near enough this year. I think 5 years, 72, would probably be a little bit more reasonable. He did not say yes to that. He thinks a shorter-term deal would make more sense. So I upped the offer, $77.5 million, and he says yes. Jerry is going to open up the pocketbook for his young ace. Drew Thorpe will be making $15.4 million through 2031. That's going to take him through, I believe, 2 years of free agency, along with the rest of his arbitration. I think it's a win-win for all parties. Drew Thorpe gets paid the bag now, and we get to keep one of our young building blocks for the next half-decade. Jerry Reinsdorf may not like to spend money, but thankfully he was wise enough to let us spend for Drew Thorpe here, and hopefully he'll let us do so for Luis Robert as well, although that's going to be a lot more than $74 million, maybe $374 million. So I accidentally simulated this first game against the Royals. I wanted to play Luis Angel Acuña's debut. He ended up going 0 for 5 with 4 strikeouts and an error. Yikes. So here's to hoping his second game as a White Sox ends up being a little bit better. And then the third game of the series against the Royals, we're going to player lock as well for Romeo Sanabria, as that will be his Major League debut. A rainy one here in the South Side for the new look White Sox. Kyle Schwarber is gone. Insert Luis Angel Acuña and Romeo Sanabria to the lineup. Luis Robert ends up sticking around. He won the July Player of the Month in the American League, hitting .351 with 10 homers, 23 RBIs. Luis Robert has been very much so in the discussion for the best player in Major League Baseball this year, and that's not the type of guy you trade away. That's why, for now at least, I've decided to keep him and try to make it work with him in terms of an extension. So here is Luis Angel Acuña against Cole Ragans. Belts that one down the line. First pitch of the at-bat is his first hit as a White Sox. It rolls to the wall. He will slide into second base with a one-out double for his first hit as a White Sox. I wish I was able to play the first game with Acuña because we were facing off against Daniel Lynch on the mound, who is certainly a lot worse than Cole Ragans, one of the best lefties in the game, as he gets the circle change to force the whiff on Luis Angel Acuña. We're going to play him primarily at shortstop. I know it's not his main position, but I think he's best equipped of anybody on the roster to play short, and I'm hoping that he can potentially stick here in the long term. He's able to field that one cleanly against the former White Sox, Yoan Moncada, who's hitting .300. He's having a great year, and the Royals are going to want to continue to give him major playing time, even with the addition of Ryan McMahon. Salvador Perez is now up, facing off against Noah Schultz, who started the game poorly, but has looked a lot better over the last few innings. Going to look to get the out at first, not let the runner at third score, as Acuna will make the throw. We play against the Braves later in this month of August. It'll be the Acuna Bowl. Luis Angel against his older brother Ronald. 3-2 now. We add some runs here. Cole Reagan's still in the game. His pitch count is really low. Acuna's behind 0-2, and good take. Acuna's plate skills are certainly a work in progress. I think there's some potential there. That was not an easy pitch to lay off. 0-2, fastball low and outside. I would understand if he swung at it. Lets the low fastball go as well. Another close one. Just barely nips away from the zone. And the count is even, 2-2. Good job here by Acuna to battle back after starting 0-2. And all that to whiff on the slider. His second strikeout of the game. He has struck out in 6 of his first 9 at-bats as a White Sox. 5-4 into the 8th. Both offenses playing well down the stretch. Runner on first, nobody out for Yoan Moncada once again against Kyle Nelson. On the ground could be 2. Valdez to Acuna. Back to Valdez. Double play! 3-6-3. What a great job there at short by Acuna, who is certainly looking a lot better compared to his first game at short, where he had an error. Bottom of the 8th, rips this one into the gap. His second hit of the game, as he will hold up at first. Wanted to go 2. Speed is probably the biggest strength of his game. Oh, he just threw a punch at Jack Caglione. I'm surprised he didn't get yanked. We end up losing the game by the final score of 7-5, so the Royals take the first 2 here in Chicago. The offense played pretty well, especially towards the middle of this game. We were able to hit off of Cole Reagan's. 2 hits for Acuna, big game for Maton. Brian Ramos homered. Noah Schultz started slow, but he had a pretty good outing overall. That sends us to the last game with our demon, Hagen Smith, on the bump against Ranger Suarez. We can view our draft picks now. We're going to do that after this matchup as we look to avoid the sweep. The red-hot Hagen Smith faces off against Ranger Suarez, who has been a disaster of a free agent signing for the Royals so far. I wanted to player lock this game again so we could player lock the debut of Romeo Sanabria, who will be DHing. He will primarily play first. He can also play catcher, which is quite useful. So here comes Hagen Smith, who, believe it or not, is not in the top 3 at all for AL Rookie of the Year. That is a crime. How is he not there? Okay, maybe that's why. 3-run homer by Dayron Blanco. We're already down 3-0. Sanabria has a runner on base and 1 away for his first big league at bat against Suarez, the lefty-on-lefty crime. Again, Sanabria will mainly play against righties, but I wanted to play him at least once in this series, and all 3 starters for the Royals are lefties. The 1-0 fouls off the inside sinker to even things up. We'll show the entirety of this at bat, given that it is the first of his career. Count is even. Sanabria not a great clutch hitter, but he belts this one down the line. It is a fair ball. First career hit for Sanabria. Rounding first, heads to second, and he is safe with a double, and that'll bring home a run. First career at bat is an RBI double for Romeo Sanabria. They will save that baseball as it's 3-1. The best part here is that his batting average for his career is 1,000. If I'm him, I retire on top, leave the game before the game leaves you. And look at the explosion from the offense. It's now 6-4. Suarez, who's still in the game, is getting rocked. As Sanabria looks at that one for strike 1, he probably should have swung. 0-1 on the ground, sharp over to second for a 4-6-3 double play. 103 exit velo, though. I can't say I am too upset, but I can't say I love seeing him struggle with runners on base. It looks like he has already completed his White Sox humiliation initiative by grounding into a double play. Chases the circle change. Good pitch from Trevor Richards. I was excited to see him against a righty, given that he's a little better against righties, but he strikes out. Now it's Carlos Hernandez for the Royals. Game is still 6-4, by the way. No one has scored since the 3rd. Count is full, working a nice at bat, but he chops it over to short. Bobby Witt Jr. will make the play. The White Sox would win this game, though, avoiding the sweep by the score of 6-4. Not a low-scoring game by any stretch, but nobody scored after the 3rd inning. which is kind of weird, but we'll take it. A win is a win, and a productive big league debut for Romeo Sanabria as he goes 1 for 4 with an RBI double. Hagen Smith gets the win despite the fact that he had one of his lesser starts of the year. I think I kind of mentioned it in the last episode, but I feel like in the games where Hagen Smith struggles, he wins, and where he pitches really well, we lose. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. Shout out to the bullpen, though. They were unhittable for the Royals today. So let's talk about these draft picks now. I know you guys are probably anxiously awaiting to see these ratings and potentials. Even though the board didn't play out how I hoped, again, I think we did fairly well with what we were given. When life gives you lemons, you got to make lemonade. 64 overall, 86 potential for Martin Burt. A little bit more raw than I was hoping, but I like where his attributes are. Contact, power, plate skills, all very respectable. He's probably going to need a couple years in the minors. I don't think he's as far along as our first rounder last year, Oswaldo Escobedo, but I think he could be quite good. A potential for Rod White, 92. Carter Brandon is the one I was kind of disappointed in. I thought he was going to be a little bit better. Claudio Rubio, 70 overall, 72 potential. That's what we expected. A high floor guy who's going to compete in spring training next year. A potential for Peter Perkins. Now, he's 23 years old and 47 overall. Not exactly the benchmark to success. And then Boyce Merrifield, I'm actually really intrigued by him. I really like his skill set. Even though his potential is the lowest of the group, I am quite high on him going forward. I actually think he could contribute at the major league level at some point. 74 overall catcher there to the Tigers. Sean Rose looks really good. This makes me kind of sad because going into the draft, he was my target, and he ended up going one pick before us. All we needed to do was not fall all the way to number 7 because he ended up going number 6. Sean Rose wearing number 1 in the Bulls City Connect uniforms. Man, we could have had it all. George Groninga did sign this year. He goes to the Twins. The biggest surprise was definitely Russell Rousseau with the Angels. He is a generational prospect, 78 overall, 99 potential. So we passed on him for a different player in the first round at the same position in Martin Burt, who I like, and I think he's going to be good. But man, we could have had a franchise-altering player with Rousseau. We scouted him a lot, and our scouts thought he was a good prospect, but not great. Certainly not this. Now, to be fair, 10 other teams passed on him as well. We're not the only ones who made the mistake, but the Angels are going to reap the rewards. Why the Angels? Why do they get him? They just traded away their generational player 20 minutes ago, and now they get another one. After wasting Mike Trout for 15 years and wasting Shohei Ohtani, they get lucky again. Richard Marte, of course, was the other guy I was really hoping we would get. Sean Rose was number 1 for me. Marte was number 2, and Marte ended up being the 5th overall pick with the A's, and he also looks really good. We thought about Guillermo Correa in the second round. It's a good thing we passed on him. Doyle Diaz, though, he was the other guy I was considering once we were on the clock between him and Burt. I think we made the right choice, although Diaz, I think, is going to be pretty solid. Federico Soto and Claude Ray, 2 guys who the scouts discovered. They both ended up with the Braves. Vinny Schiavo, I kind of hoped he would have ended up a little bit better. I think he is talented, though. Glenn Norman with the Nationals. That was a pretty good pick at number 4. What I noticed is that pretty much all the teams at the top made good picks. They all passed on Russell Rousseau, but they all got good prospects. Alberto Villanueva, the 2nd overall pick. Looks like a hit for the Cardinals. They could have had Russo, but they still end up with a good player. Cy Cook, the 3rd overall pick. Our scouts thought he was the number 1 player in the draft. He's not number 1. He's behind Russo, but he's probably number 2. Reggie Davis is a guy I was high on. He's already a 75 overall with the Giants. Richie Munson is a player I didn't really scout. A lot of the guys who I was skeptical of and did not even scout, I was correct about. 98 potential for Douglas Randolph, 62 overall in the mid-rounds. Very reminiscent of Scott Rios with the Giants series. And then David Marin, the number 1 pick. I knew there was never a chance he was going to fall to us. If we had the number 1 pick, he would have been my choice, even ahead of Sean Rose and Richard Marte. He's going to be a really good player for Toronto, but not quite Russell Rousseau. We're going to simulate a couple of weeks. I want to play against the Giants. We haven't gotten to play at Oracle yet in this series, and obviously I want to go back after our launch series with them last year. So we've got the Marlins and the Twins on the road, and then the Braves for the Acuna Bowl, followed by the Nationals, who are the worst team in baseball. Here against the Marlins, bottom of the 10th, we're up 4-3. Penn Murphy looking to close out the deal against Jonah Bride, who draws a walk, and the winning run is on base for the Marlins. Obviously, the Giants was our series last year, but the Marlins was only 2 years ago. We've still got a lot of memories at this place as well. Connor Norby draws a walk. Murphy's got to get it into strike zone. That'll bring up Austin Hendrick, who's been all over the place today. He's reached on an error twice. He's drawn a walk, he has a hit, and he's driven in 3 runs. The 0-1 for Hendrick on the ground. This could do it. It goes off the base? You have got to be kidding me. That could have ended the game. It deflected off the bag. Shouldn't that be an out at least at third anyway? You have got to be kidding me. And then Trey Morgan crushes it into right center. Why is everybody running? Badu is going to make the catch. Do they just win the game off of that? Is there some rule I don't know of when the bases are loaded in extra innings that you can run on a sacrifice? How is that legal? How did this inning just happen? That was one of the innings of all time. So Austin Hendrick had a hit, a walk, he reached off of errors twice, and he had the miraculous play off the base. I mean, I don't even know what I'm supposed to say. That was the weirdest finish I've ever seen. Owen White made his first career start, and he was pretty good. 5 innings, 2 earned runs. Later in the Marlins series, though, Nick Maton tore his MCL. He is done for the year, unfortunately. We're not going to replace him on the roster, though, because Jesus Sanchez is about to come off the 60-day IL for his torn calf. So we're going to wait a day and then bring him back. Drew Thorpe, no-hitter through 6 innings. His first game after his extension was not all that great. Here in his second game, he's doing pretty well, although Connor Norby starts the 7th, hits it well into right, and that is going to drop. The second I come into the game, first pitch is a double for Norby. Drew Thorpe, I sincerely apologize. I should have just simulated through and let you do it yourself. Thorpe did not allow a hit the rest of the way, and we would end up winning the game fairly comfortably by the score of 7-0. Drew Thorpe threw 7 scoreless innings. He allowed just the 1 hit. The bullpen did a great job as well, and the offense was terrific as well. 7 runs, 13 hits. So Jesus Sanchez is going to be off the injured list. He's still going to be hurt for a couple of days, but we're going to be able to bring him back. And he will be replacing in the outfield Douglas Cato because he tore his finger, and he will be out for the year. I'm a little concerned about Douglas Cato and his durability. This is going to be a problem. He's played 32 games since May when we called him up. The guy cannot stay healthy at all. He cannot play back-to-backs. He gets a new injury seemingly every week. So replacing him on the roster will be Colson Montgomery. I was hesitant to bring him back up given his struggles in the big leagues this year, but I figured, why not give him another 100 at-bats in the majors to end the season, try to give him some more confidence. He has 4 consecutive multi-hit games in AAA, 417 average over his last 10, and he's been awesome in AAA this year, so why not give him another shot? And I kind of like how our infield is now set up defensively. We don't have to play him at short. I've always viewed him as a better fit at third base, and now with Acuna, he can play short, Montgomery can play third, and Ramos can play second. It's ironic because that's none of their natural positions, and we could put all 3 of them at their natural spots, but I want Montgomery at third because of his arm, I want Acuna at short because of his range, and I want Ramos at second because he's the worst of the group. So going into our series here against Minnesota, we go top 7. We're down by 1, but the bases are loaded. A big spot for Luisangel Acuna, who earlier in the game hit his first home run as a White Sox. Against Jose Suarez, he hits it high, and it's got some carry pretty deep into center. At the track, it is caught. No grand slam for Acuna, and after doing nothing with the bases loaded, his White Sox humiliation ritual is now complete as well. That would be the difference. We would lose the game 3-2, but we won the first 2 games of the series, scoring a combined total of 16 runs. So we take 2 of 3 on the road against Minnesota. Would have been awesome to get the sweep against the first place Twins on the road. That would have been big for this young group, but still winning the series, it's hard to really complain. We had some great offensive performances here in this first game. This is the game where Douglas Cato got hurt. Romeo Sanabria homered for the first time. Corey Julks went deep. And then in the second game, we scored 9 runs. Luis Robert had 3 extra base hits. Luis Angel Acuna had 3 hits. Hagen Smith was mediocre, but again, we seem to play at our best when he struggles, and when he pitches a gem, nobody on the team can hit. Now we've got 6 games at home. The Acuna family, I'm sure, will enjoy this 3-game set against the Braves. Bases loaded, bottom 8. For Matt Thaiss, we're going to take him out, and we're going to bring in Jesus Sanchez off the bench. Good to have him back healthy. I think this is only his 2nd or 3rd game back. We're kind of thrusting him in there. But he does hit this one high and pretty deep and right. Back at the track, at the wall, it is caught. I thought that one had a chance to make it over, but unfortunately, it does not. Luckily, we would still win the game, however. We would walk it off by the final score of 3-2, as it is an RBI single for Akil Baddoo, who's played really well over the last month or so. Kyle Teel with a big game, 2 hits and a walk. He's been playing very well as of recent, even though he only has 1 home run since the start of June. I will never understand how he had a 3-home run game against Boston and then has gone deep once since. 6 innings, 2 earned, solid game for Thorpe. After splitting the first 2 games, we're looking for the series win against the Braves. The problem is the offense is really struggling against Spencer Schwellenbach. We'll see if Brian Ramos can change that with the bases loaded and 2 away as he finds himself behind in the count 0-1. Ramos belts it foul, curveball at 81. That was the pitch. I'm surprised he was late on it. A slow hanging pitch in the middle of the zone, you got to capitalize on that. Now Ramos is behind 0-2. Surely he will not get anything as good as that last pitch as he looks at the 97-mile-an-hour inside fastball. The 1-2, belts it up the middle. That goes for a base knock, and we're going to bring in 2. A 110-mile-an-hour single off the bat of Brian Ramos. Slider right down the pike. I don't know what happened to Schwellenbach that at bat, but his command was pretty horrible. Runners on the corners now for Kyle Teel. This one goes Oppo Taco. Fair ball! 3-1 ball game. Ramos has underrated speed. He's going to look to score as it's bobbled in the outfield. A 2-run double for Kyle Teel, and it's 4-1. A fumble in left is the insurance that Ramos needs to score. And Schwellenbach, who nearly was going to get through 6 scoreless innings, is going to be yanked for Colin Poche. The lefty has a 3.72 ERA. He'll face off against Luis Angel Acuna. The 0-1 pops it up behind the plate, and it looks like the Braves are going to make it out of the inning, but not before the White Sox score 4. The only 4 runs we would score in this game, but it would be enough to win. Chicago wins the series over Atlanta. I wish we could have seen the Ronald Acuna and Luis Angel Acuna jersey swap. That would have been pretty cool. Good win, though, overall. The offense wasn't great, but when we needed to get hits together, we did. We strummed them along all in the 6th, all at the right time with a 2-run single for Ramos and a 2-run double by Teel, the only extra base hit of the game. 6 1/3 innings, 3 earned runs for Noah Schulte. He gets the win. His ERA is down all the way to 5, which I know doesn't look great, but considering where he was in April, that's not too bad. Luis Angel Acuna gets another chance here with the bases loaded in a game where we're down 7-5 against the worst team in baseball, although we've done it with our B team. Our 3 best players by WAR, Teel, Robert, and Ramos, have all not played today. So we're actually going to make a switch. We're going to bring in Brian Ramos off the bench, where he's going to try to deliver as a big hit. We got a bases loaded 2-run single from him earlier today, as this one is at high and deep in a right center. But it will be caught by Dylan Cruz, the former number 2 overall pick. He hasn't really played all that well in Washington. I actually briefly looked at a deal for him, but I figured it's probably too early for the Nationals to give up on him. Look at this, bottom of the 9th. We've got 2 runners on, 1 away for Colson Montgomery, who has 6 hits over his last 4 games. So I decided to keep him in, give him a chance here in a big spot, and he strikes out. So now we're going to bring in Luis Robert. I figured we can give Montgomery the at-bat, and unless he grounds into a double play, which would have been very possible with this team, Lou Bob is going to get an at-bat. First pitch, rips it into center, but it is caught, and the Washington Nationals win this game by the final score of 7-5. All things considered, though, I mean, it could have been worse. We played with our B team. Again, our 3 best players combined for 2 at-bats today. Now, granted, they were both very high leverage at-bats, and both times they came up short. But still, we played a lot of the lesser guys, a lot of the platoon players in this game, and we held up on offense, 5 runs, 11 hits. The problem is the pitching was not great. Owen White threw 3 innings, he allowed 6 runs, and through 3 starts, he is 0-2 with an ERA in the mid-8s, and he's gotten worse in each start. We only won 1 game against the Nationals, but it was a dominant pitching performance from Hagen Smith with 6 scoreless innings. We did not get a base hit until the 7th. We only had 2 hits the whole game. Pair of solo homers for Luis Robert and Colson Montgomery, but that's all we needed to win the game because Hagen Smith is that guy, and the bullpen played quite well. And as we go into this matchup here against San Francisco, I've got to shout out the bullpen. They have been legitimately one of the better pens in the league over the last really month or so at this point. Over the last 5 games, tied for first in earned runs, 3rd in ERA, and that's pretty high volume, 11th in innings pitched. Everybody's playing well. I was going through everybody's last 10 games in the bullpen, and I don't know if there's a single guy whose ERA is above like 3.8 or something. Everybody's ERA is quite low. The bullpen has been really solid for us since the All-Star break. One of the better pens since the break after it was the worst the first half of the year. There's a look at both lineups, and here's a look at Logan Webb, the 2 aces facing off against each other, as we'll get to see Drew Thorpe in a few moments for the White Sox. 4.57 ERA, 1.32 whip. It's been an underwhelming season for Logan Webb, but obviously still a very strong arm. Akil Baddoo will get us started. This one is up the middle, and Tyler Fitzgerald cannot make the play. An infield single for Akil Baddoo, and the White Sox get an early runner aboard. I'm going to bring up Colson Montgomery from the 2-hole over to third. Throw is way offline from Casey Schmidt. It's a throwing error for the Giants, and instead of turning 2, there's 2 on and nobody out. Certainly a noticeable contrary and a big spot here for Luis Robert with 2 runners on base. And he crushes this ball in right center field. This one will one hop off the wall, and it should score both of them. If not for the error, neither of those guys would have reached. But it's a 2-run double for Lou Bob. It's a 2-0 lead for the White Sox. And we still have another runner in scoring position with nobody out. 1 gone now. Kyle Teal rips this one perfectly into Triple's alley. Luis Robert will walk to home plate. Teal rounds second, heads through third, and he is safe with a triple. I felt like throughout the Giants series, Triple's alley screwed us a whole lot more than it helped us. It's nice being on the other end of that, and I guess in this case, it still screws the Giants. 3-0 lead now as Kyle Teal brings home the run, and he's 90 feet away from home for Luis Angel Acuna. This one goes into the right center gap, and it's 4-0. Offensive explosion here in the first inning, and had the Giants turned the double play, it would be scoreless going into the bottom of the first. So their defense really messed things up. Romeo Sanabria has been honestly pretty good through the first 3 weeks of his big league career, but he will ground into an inning-ending double play. Pretty good inning, though. The Sox score 4. Some early run support for the $77.5 million man, Drew Thorpe, who's been solid through the month of August. He's had a couple bad starts. He's obviously had some good starts. Took a no-hitter into the 7th inning against the Marlins. Tyler Fitzgerald leads things off, chases the slider. I think this contract extension for Thorpe is going to be so nice for us because we don't have to worry about his money for the next 5 years. And we've got a mainstay for our roster very similar to Jun-Hoo Lee in the Giants franchise last year who goes down on the fastball. Into the second, Corey Julks sends this one into left center field, and the offensive entourage continues. Leadoff double for Julks, who's been great over the last month or so. Averages above 250, OPS now above 700. Jesus Sanchez goes down on the fastball. Logan Webb just trying to get anything going. Runner at third now, 2 away here for Colson Montgomery, the 3-2, and he draws a walk. 2 on again for Luis Robert, who drove in a pair back in the first. Lou Bob has a real shot of hitting 100 RBIs before the month of September, and I get that RBIs are not a great stat, but it shows how effective he's been with guys on base, although he goes down looking there. So Logan Webb lets 2 aboard. Neither of them score, though, and it remains 4-0. We'll see if San Francisco can get rolling in this inning as Velasquez hits it up the middle. A great scoop by Drew Thorpe, showing off the leather for the second out of the inning. It'll bring up the catcher, Patrick Bailey. He was a demon against lefties in the Giants series, but here it's a righty. Chases the sweeper from Thorpe, who is through 2 no-hit innings. He's only thrown a walk so far. Looking quite good against the San Francisco offense as we will move into the third. Brian Ramos gets things started, one of the few guys who wasn't hitting in the first. He strikes out on the sweeper. Good response there by Logan Webb. That'll bring up Kyle Teal. His average is up nearing 250. He's hit for great contact over the last month or so, probably 300 since the All-Star break. He goes down looking on the sinker, though. 3 consecutive Ks for Logan Webb. He's not known as a strikeout guy, but he's got 4 tonight. Bottom 3, back to the top of the order. Fitzgerald pops it up in a foul territory. Montgomery is under it, and he will not make the catch. What? It's not even sunny. How did you miss that? Thorpe will get him on the slider with the very next pitch, so I guess it works out. We get to see the filthy slider again, but what was Colson Montgomery doing? He's lucky he was not at short, because if that ball drops, it's in the field of play, and there's a runner at first base. Into the 4th, 2 away for Jesus Sanchez. He hits this one well into the opposite field, but this one should be caught, and it will. The White Sox offense has been silenced. We do not have a base hit since, I believe, the first at bat of the second inning. It's been a while, but at least we have a base hit. The Giants can't say the same. Jung-Hoo Lee strikes out for a second time today. I'm not used to these Jung-Hoo Lee strikeouts. I feel like that barely happened in the Giants series last year. Willy Adames now hits it sharply to short. Luis Angel Acuna will make the play. That's 4 no-hit innings for Thorpe, who had a no-hitter go into the 7th against the Marlins just 2 weeks ago, and now he has another one that'll go at least into the 5th. Pitching change for the Giants. The 2021 Cy Young winner, Robbie Ray, will come into the game. 3.51 ERA on the year. Against Luis Robert, it's a 108-mile-an-hour grounder. Adames has trouble with it, but he will make the play. That ball was hit so hard that he couldn't field it properly. But Willy Adames is able to throw out the runner, Luis Robert, and we still do not have a hit since the second inning, which, again, is still more than what the Giants can say. Bottom 5, Rowdy Tellez launches it into right center. That one will make it over the wall in Triples Alley, and the San Francisco Giants are on the board. The no-hitter and the shutout is dead. 426-foot home run, number 21 on the year for Rowdy Tellez, who has had a career renaissance this year in San Francisco. And so the Giants finally are awake offensively. They'll bring up Nelson Velasquez now, the former Kansas City Royal. So he goes down on the circle change. Thorpe looking to get back to business after allowing the lawn ball. That'll bring up Patrick Bailey now, the 3-2, and he will draw a walk. So Bailey reaches base. We'll see if San Francisco can start a little rally, add a couple more runs, really make it a game. 2 away, full count here for Casey Schmitz. Only hitting 148, but he draws a walk. He does not chase the low sweeper. Another walk from Thorpe. Still only has allowed 1 hit, but he has 3 walks today. Fitzgerald, a dribbler. Teal looks to get it. Throw to first is not in time. The 99 speed of Tyler Fitzgerald beats out the throw, and the Giants have left them loaded. In the Giants series, we could not hit with the bases loaded either, but apparently now that we're not using them, they can. 2-run single for Jung-Hoo Lee. We're certainly used to that. And it's a 1-run ball game. It's now 4-3. Big swing for Jung-Hoo Lee. I'm used to being happy about that. Now I'm not. Elliot Ramos launches it into left. Jolks cannot get it. 1 hops off the wall. We're tied. Lee rounds third, heads to the plate. He is safe. A 2-run double for Hittin' Elliott. Elliot Ramos puts the Giants ahead, and we're going to take Drew Thorpe out of the game. He had a no-hitter going into the 5th. The Giants were down to their final strike at the inning. If we were just able to get out Casey Schmidt, who's hitting 148, if we just didn't walk him. So Thorpe's day ends prematurely. He pitched so well early, and then it went crashing down as he's allowed 5 runs so far. Hayden Wisniewski's going to have to get out of the inning to keep it at 5. 1-1 for Willy Adames. Liner to first. Sanabria with the scoop. I don't know when that ball hit the ground, but it did. Doesn't matter. We throw him out anyway. But a big inning for the Giants. They score 5 and have taken the lead. Into the 6th, Luis Angel Acuna up the middle, base hit. For the first time since the 2nd, we've got a runner on base, and arguably our best base runner. Him and Cato are the fastest, and well, Douglas Cato barely plays, so he doesn't really count. Sanabria rips this one into the gap. This one's going to drop, and it should score Acuna. Rounds third, heads home. It's an RBI double for Romeo Sanabria. Lefty on lefty matchup. Sanabria gets the win. We're tied at 5. I think the best part about Sanabria's game so far has been the extra base power. I've been impressed with all the doubles and homers. Rowdy Tellez leads off the bottom of the 6th, much like he led off the 5th. This time into left center, 413 feet. His 2nd home run in as many innings. And the Giants are right back ahead. Number 22 on the year, number 2 on the game, and it's a 6-5 lead for San Francisco. Remember when we had the no-hitter going into the 5th? That was good times. Things change, and things change fast in baseball. Velasquez gets that one by the diving glove of Colson Montgomery. Acuna is not able to get to it either. Another base hit for San Francisco as they continue to smack the cover off the baseball. Pat Bailey now up for the Giants behind 1-2, and he launches it into right center. Robert can only watch it fly. 418 over the fence in Triples Alley, and it's 8-5 San Francisco. The offense is just pouring it on now. We've got a yank Wisniewski out of the game. Faced off against 3 batters in this inning. They all got hits, and 2 of them hit homers. James Tibbs III up the middle. Ramos deflects it, but it's another hit for the Giants. The former first rounder who had a great year in AAA. They've brought him up to the big leagues. Casey Schmidt now swinging a miss on the sweeper. Finally, we get an out. Jesus Christ. Good pitch there by Cam Boozer. That'll bring up Tyler Fitzgerald. His hustle in the last inning gave the Giants their big rally. And here in this inning, he hits it off the wall and right. Sanchez makes a good play on it. The Giants are still going to send the runner anyway, and he is out by a country mile. I would say that was the wrong decision to send him home. But, hey, you do you. I'm not complaining. Jung Hoo Lee goes down on the sweeper. That's a hat trick, his 3rd strikeout of the game, but not before the Giants add 3 more runs. They lead 8-5. Hector Neris comes out of the pen here for the 7th. We've got some catch-up to do with the bullpen collapse. Ezekiel Baду hits it down the line. A nice scoop there at first base by Tellez. I feel like if he got to that ball quicker, he didn't really have to dive. But the big fella gets some aura points out of it. That'll bring up Colson Montgomery ahead in the count 2-1, and he crushes it into right field, places the bat down. That one is gone. 353 feet from Montgomery, his 3rd home run in the majors this season. And that'll make it 8-6. The offense has been far from consistent today, but they've given us the run support we would need. 6 runs normally should be enough to win. Problem is we forgot how to pitch, but a good swing there by Montgomery. That'll bring up Luis Robert. He finds himself behind 1-2 against Hector Neris, and he will go down on the high fastball. Chicago cuts into the lead a little bit, but we still got some more work to do. Trailing 8-6 off the homer by Colson Montgomery. Enole Paredes is out of the bullpen here for the Giants in the 7th. 4.06 ERA. He has been outstanding over the last month or so. We're not hoping for a 3rd homer out of Tellez. He puts it on the ground. Sanabria will make the play, and it's a 1-2-3 inning. There's a parade inside my city, yeah. Into the 8th now, the Giants will turn it over to our good friend Camilo Duvall, who we have had in 3 series in a row. Guardians in 22, Marlins in 23, and obviously the entirety of the Giants series last year as Kyle Teal deflects that one up the middle, and Duvall will make the play. He's having a nice year, 2.66 ERA, even not as the closer. And a really nice defensive play there for out number 2. That'll bring up Luis Angel Acuna. Hits this one well into center, but it looks like it'll be tracked down. I was hoping Duvall would get to face off against Jesus Sanchez. It would be the holy trinity of octagonal gaming franchises, given that we've had Duvall in 3 series and now Jesus Sanchez we've had in 3 separate series. Bottom of the 8th, Danny Young is into the game. This is the fellow that we got from the Mets in the Luis Angel Acuna trade. The lefty's been a really good addition so far. Obviously, he was not the highlight of the deal, but I really liked the addition of him in that trade, and he has been as good as I would have hoped as he strikes out Nelson Velasquez to get things started here in the bottom half of the frame. James Tibbs III hits it well into right. Sanchez will make the play. And now going into the 9th, we've got some work to do. We've got to score at least 2 against the 2-time back-to-back All-Star closer, Ryan Walker. Why couldn't he be this good for us in the series last year? 1.81 ERA, 29-32 in save ops. He has been as good as it gets. It's not going to be easy here for the bottom portion of the order. With one away, it is Corey Julks. Ropes this one into center. His exit velos have been really impressive. That one 109 off the bat to where Jung-Hoo Lee has trouble corralling it in. And we're going to have the tying run at the plate. A salute to you, my good sir. It's Jesus Sanchez up for the White Sox, and this one is hit well into left center field. This ball is going to drop, and it goes off the wall. We're going to hold Julks at third, but things now all of a sudden get really interesting with the tying run in scoring position. We'll see if we can bring him in. Top of the order due up. It's Akil Baddoo for Chicago. This one is lined over to third, and it is caught by Schmidt. That ball got by him. We would have tied this game. A potential game-winning play for Schmidt as it comes down to Colson Montgomery, who homered in his last at-bat. Certainly like another one here. 3-2, draws a walk. Very productive day offensively for Montgomery with a homer and 2 walks. Jesus Christ, the bases are now loaded. But guess who's up? Luis Robert, our best hitter. He finds himself behind in the count, though, 1-2. All-star hitter, all-star closer. The 1-2 on its way from Ryan Walker. Swing and a miss on the slider. That pitch was in the zone. It was definitely hittable. But the Giants take this one by the final score of 8-6. They take the first of 3 here at Oracle Park in beautiful San Francisco, California. We were up 4-0 with the 4 runs in the first. The pitching was really good for most of the game, but in the 5th and the 6th innings, we just blatantly forgot how to pitch. It was weird. I mean, the bullpen's done that often, but Drew Thorpe to have a collapse like that certainly caught me off guard. The offense played well. 4 extra base knocks, homer for Montgomery. 5 different players drove in runs. Thorpe had a no-hitter through 4 innings, yet his numbers look really bad because the 5th inning was a train wreck. Bullpen certainly didn't help as Rowdy Tellez goes deep twice, Bailey with a homer. Logan Webb, I thought, had a good start. The first inning got away from him, and it wasn't entirely his fault. The error by Schmidt really screwed things over through them, and after that, he pitched quite well. So we're going to simulate up to the end of August, leading into this series against the Athletics, wrapping up the series in San Francisco, 3 in Seattle, and then 3 at home against the Yankees. So here in this second game against the Giants, we are killing them. 11-1, bases loaded. Colson Montgomery has gone deep twice, and he is looking for a third. He only had 2 home runs coming into this series this year at the most hitter-friendly park in baseball, and he's homered 3 times over the last 2 games against the Giants. Behind 0-2 into center, it is caught by Jung-Hoo Lee. The Giants rocking their new City Connect uniforms. I'm not sure how I feel about them, but I would have enjoyed using them occasionally last year. As the White Sox win it by the final score of 11-3. The Giants cut into the deficit a little bit, but it was not enough for Bob Melvin's squad. 2 for 5, 2 homers, 3 RBIs for Montgomery leading the way. Luis Angel Acuna also went deep as well. He drove in 4 runs. I guess he had a grand slam. Noah Schultz, 7 innings of 1-run ball. Man, does he continue to pitch well. He's an entirely different player from April to now. Since we called him back up in April, his ERA is below 3. His whip is at around 1.2. In 9 starts, 6 of them have been quality starts. He's been so good, as is Hagen Smith. And of course, the baseball gods don't want both of them to be good at the same time. So Hagen Smith broke his arm, and unfortunately, his very impressive rookie season comes to an abrupt end. Why are all of our injured players on the 60-day? Why does every injury this team get have to be serious? So Smith's rookie season is done. 19 starts, just over 100 innings, 3.11 ERA, 1.22 whip. He was so good. Absolutely exceeded my expectations. I cannot wait to have him next year. Grant Holman will replace his spot on the roster, and Hayden Wesneski will slide into the rotation over both Baroa and Martin. I really like Hayden Wesneski. I know the numbers are not great, but he's having a really strong year. He's just had some really bad outings in a row. Allowing the 2 home runs against the Giants certainly hurt him. But I want to try him out as a starting pitcher, see if we can convert him, because I think he's got that kind of upside. So after losing the series against the Giants, that brings us here to Seattle. 6-5, bottom 8, runners in scoring position for Santiago Espinal, who singles into left. That'll tie the game. I wanted to keep Danny Onion, even though he's kind of struggled today. He only allowed 1 run through his first month as a White Sox before this game, and he's allowed 2 today, and we're going to take him out here. I wanted to keep him in for the Espinal at bat because he has a really high clutch rating. He is our high leverage pitcher, but clearly he just doesn't really have it today. Yoneli Paredes will replace him. The Mariners had the potential go-ahead run 90 feet away from home. They decided not to send him on that last base hit, which probably was a good decision because Julio Rodriguez is just going to bring him in anyway. Rips it into center at 7-6 Seattle. J-Rod slides safely into second with a double, and the Mariners take the lead, and they still have 2 runners in scoring position with 1 out. We're back to square one. So we will intentionally walk the following batter, Brandon Lau, loading the bases. It sets up a force out for Nolan Arenado at all bags. Bloops the outside slider, and it's going to go for a hit. That's going to score 2, and it is 9-6. Lou Bob cannot get rid of it. 71 off the bat. That is really unlucky and unfortunate. Gleyber Torres now up for Seattle. This one is belted. 109 off the bat. He hit that one a little bit harder as it's 10-6 Seattle. Another bullpen implosion for the White Sox as Paredes does not even record a single out. We're going to remove him from the game. Our third pitcher of the inning as it's Cam Boozer. 4.23 ERA, looking to keep the game afloat. We had the lead going into the bottom of the 8th, and now the Mariners are up by 4, and they've got a chance for more. Lazaro Montes on the ground. This could end the inning. Acuna, Ramos over to first. Not in time. Good hustle by Montes, and that'll keep the inning alive. Runners on the corners here for Jarren Duran, who entered the game off the bench at the start of the inning. This is his second at bat of the 8th, as it's a comebacker to the mound, and Boozer will make the play. Big inning, though, for Seattle, and that'll be enough to help them win this game by the final score of 10-6. Seattle wins the series as they take the first 2 against the White Sox. The bullpen just completely fell apart here in this game. 6 runs should be enough to win. The offense gave us the run support, but the Mariners get the job done instead. Akil Baddoo, Brian Ramos, and Luis Angel Acuna all had multiple hits. They all drove in runs. Romeo Sanabria as well, another extra base hit. He drove in a run as well. Bailey Falter was kind of mediocre. The guys after him did well, but the back end of the bullpen did not. Now we're looking to avoid the sweep. Tied at 4, bottom 9. Nolan Arenado was the standout for the Mariners in the last game, but he goes down on the slider, slamming the bat in frustration as Yoneli Paredes hopes this inning goes better than the last one. Cal Raleigh goes down looking on the sinker. Paredes keeps the game alive, and we are headed to extras. Unfortunately, the Mariners would end up walking it off anyway. A 2-run shot by Lazaro Montes, who goes 3 for 5 with a homer, a double, and obviously the walk-off. Akil Baddoo and Jesus Sanchez go deep. Brian Ramos brings home another run, but unfortunately it is not enough. Drew Thorpe got the start. He was kind of mediocre. Thorpe has had some really good moments during this month of August, but he's had some really bad moments as well. He's been oddly inconsistent in the first month of his $77.5 million extension. So that brings us here to the final series of the episode 3 at home against the Yankees. We're trailing 5-4 in the bottom of the 9th, and Baddoo pops it up. Devin Williams on the mound gets the save as it is caught at third base. It's now a 5-game losing streak for the White Sox, who dropped this one to the Yankees to start the 3-game set. Noah Schultz got rocked. He was due for a bad start after so many great outings in a row. 3 1/3 innings, allowing 5, while Carlos Rodon throws 7. Kyle Teel is not supposed to start against lefties, yet he was the entire offense. He drove in all 4 runs. but he could not carry the team to the win as we get swept by the Yankees. Let's address the elephant in the room. They scored 23 in this game, including 9 in the first inning. This was Hayden Wesneski's first start of the year for us, and as you can imagine, it did not go very well. He recorded 1 out. He allowed 8 runs. Only 3 of them were earned. We were out of long relievers by the end of the 4th inning. That is a problem. The Yankees absolutely mashed the baseball. In MLB The Show Sim, I don't know if I've seen a 23-run game. I've seen 20. I don't know if I've seen 23. That is pretty bad. So the Hayden Wesneski starting pitcher experiment is off to a pretty bad start. We'll see if it gets better in the month of September, which is where we're going to lead things off. Next time around, we are going to wrap up the regular season going through September, and hopefully the team can finish off strong as we get set for another offseason or maybe a playoff run if we win out and we have everything across the league go our way. We already cannot win the division, but maybe we can sneak into one of those wild card spots. You never know. Hope everyone enjoyed. Let me know what you thought of the trade deadline and our draft picks down below in the comments. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out.